The Lunaverse by Rainbowdoubledash. Episode 14, Tales of Ponyville. Chapter 3, Teaching Laughter. Sometimes, I wonder if it's all downhill from here. If I plateaued already, that the best days of my life have passed me by. Of course, then I remember I'm the element of laughter. I think destined to do great things kind of comes with a job description there. At the very least, I know that I'll always have an impact on the lives of ponies around me. So, maybe not my best days have passed then, but I do think that maybe I left most of the exciting time of my life behind me. That really, that's for the best. I was a foal and a young mare. I did foal and young mare type things. I lived, I laughed, I fell in love and had my heart broken, plus a rib here or there, and then fixed it up again, ditto the ribs. I lived on top of the world, at the bottom of a bottle, and everywhere in between. I've traveled to Las Pegasus and Manhattan, to Colton and Bryleton, and there's photographic evidence that I've been to New Orleans, though I don't remember anything of it, or the day before, or for about 2 days afterwards. I gave my parents and even my older sister berry punts more than a euphemistic heart attacks, especially that time I brought home a Minotaur. Even in Equestria, a pony dating a Minotaur raises a few eyebrows. I think the reason why it took me so long to find my cutie mark is because I wasn't trying to find out who I was or what I wanted the way every pony else was. I didn't much care who I was. I just wanted to have fun, whatever that meant at the time. No, I wasn't finding true happiness, but I was definitely finding some decent facsimiles. But then I started getting older, and that meant I had to start taking care of myself, thinking about my future and abandon my live-in at the moment attitude. But bit by bit, aside my childish things and moving into the real world. Also, my parents finally put their hoof down and wouldn't let me wander off during the summers or weekends, or even much during the weekdays except to go to school. Probably a good decision on their part, though at the time I thought they were standing in the sun for the sun, as the saying goes. Of course, then I earned my cutie mark, the last pony I knew to do so. I was nearly grown up by the time it finally occurred, and I found out how much it made me happy to see the smiling foals and to basically help to raise the next generation of ponies. And I ended up going in the opposite direction. Suddenly, I became the responsible one, the steady one, the one with a goal in life. I hit the book so hard it left a mark. I had to, of course. They don't just let any pony be a teacher after all, and with the grade point average I had, it seemed like a hopeless cause. But I did it. I even managed to do it without hurting my social life too badly. I mean, yes, it's been years since I've seen most of the old gang, but they've all moved on too. At least, I hope they have. Doing the kinds of things we used to, not an insignificant portion which range from barely legal to very illegal, is a young pony's game, and I think it'd almost be sad to see Rainbow Shine still dancing on tables in Las Pegasus. She isn't. Last I heard, she's on the weather patrol in Bryleton. But back then, our lives were just sticking it to authority for the sake of making a scene. Anarchy and hateism is all well and good for a kid, but it doesn't really get anything done. A wasted youth nearly isn't as good as a wise and protective old age. Nope, I'm a teacher. I elucidate and illuminate and educate every pony around me. I ensure that the ponies I know, but especially my students, the foals in class, are more informed, more knowledgeable, and therefore better ponies all around. It's not exciting, it's not glamorous, but it's my special talent. It's what makes me happy. It's what my cutie mark is telling me. And as much fun as the old days were, I wouldn't trade the life I have now for anything. The foals filed into the classroom for recess and found their desks quickly enough, but continued to talk for several minutes, keeping conversations and discussions they had been having outside going. Most of the conversations centered on the storm over the Everfree Forest, its sheer size, and the fact that the Weather Patrol didn't seem to have any intention of getting rid of it. Despite being a nerf pony, Cheerilee was familiar enough with the weather of Everfree Forest to know that the storm, though large in size, wasn't going to be particularly dangerous. It was still unscheduled, however. Cheerilee had triple-checked her newspaper to verify this. And more to the point, she couldn't see any sign of Ponyville's weather patrol getting ready to combat the rain. She wondered if they decided to change the date of the storm that had been scheduled for next week. Eventually, Cheerilee had to bring the classroom to a semblance of order, especially given the importance of today's subject. "Let's quiet down, please! We have a very important lesson to get to." Cheerilee asked as she stood up and walked from her desk, over to the presentation she had prepared. The classroom of foals quieted down quickly enough. "Thank you. Today, we're going to be talking about cutie marks." About half the class looked especially attentive at that, while at least a few, all of whom had earned their cutie marks by now, lost a little interest. Shirley had been expecting as much, though, hence her physical presentation. First, however, she made sure that her own cutie mark was a clear view of the classroom. "You can all see my cutie mark, can't you?" At a few nods, she turned her presentation that laid upon the picture stand. With one hoof, she moved aside a picture covering it, and revealed several blown-up pictures of herself when she was younger, starting with her as a foal, around the same age as every pony else in the classroom beside her. "Just like every pony, I wasn't born with a cutie mark." Shirley resisted the urge to add the line that she had heard as a foal. Her flank was blank. The prerogative flank was common enough already. No need to add fuel to the fire, simply for the sake of a rhyme. She heard a slight squeal from one of the foals in front of the class. Twist, a foal who wore thick glasses and had a slight speech impediment, though Shirley was confident she had outgrown it eventually, and decided Shirley as a filly. "Ah," Twist said, "she's so precious." Shirley smiled warmly, ignoring a few rolled eyes from near her foals. "Then, one day," she said, continuing her story, "I woke up to find out a cutie mark had appeared." She moved aside a picture of her as a foal, instead showing a much later one. "Look at her hair!" Silverspoon exclaimed, before she could stop herself. A wave of laughter passed through the classroom. Shirley herself joined in as she glanced at the photograph, showing her with a wavy tossed mane and tail that looked like it had lost a fight with a waffle maker, not to mention a checkered scarf, a single leg warmer on her left hind leg, and braces. At least no pony had commented on those. "Yes, I know," she said, "but honestly, that's how every pony was wearing the mane back then." Shirley didn't need to feel the need to explain that by every pony. She meant a very specific youth subculture they had been a part of, nor that what she had been wearing had been considered quite risque by adults at the time, and most especially that this was probably the tamest picture that existed of her at that point in time. This was not, after all, a history lesson, and her goal had been to keep the subject of cutie marks light anyway. "I had decided to become a teacher," Shirley continued, "and the flowers symbolized my hope that I could help my future students bloom if I nurtured them with knowledge. The smiles on the flowers represented the cheer I hoped to bring to my little ponies while they were learning." Shirley also decided to leave out that, at a glance, her cutie mark almost represented 3 smiling suns rather than smiling flowers, and a slight ostracizing she experienced as a result. Having a sun-themed cutie mark was considerably, incredibly bad luck. But Granny Smith, the resident wise old-timer of Ponyville, even back then, had herself stated they were flowers, not suns, and every pony had listened to Granny Smith on that point, thankfully. "Now," Shirley said, pausing in her presentation, "can any pony tell me when a pony gets his or her cutie mark?" "Ow, ow, 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 ow!" Twist exclaimed, unsurprisingly. She was always Shirley's most eager student. "When she discovers that certain something that makes her special." Shirley nodded, heading back to her desk and overlooking class. "That's right, Twist. A cutie mark appears on a pony's flank when he or she finds that certain something that makes it different from any other pony. Even 2 cutie marks that look identical can mean very different things. But most important of all, a cutie mark represents the thing that makes you happy. But finding out what makes you, well, you, isn't something that happens overnight. It's a journey of self-discovery, and no amount of hoping, wishing, or begging will make a cutie mark appear before it's time." Shirley cut herself off when she noticed something in the back. "Apple Bloom, are you passing a note?" she demanded, when she noticed that the Earth pony leaning across the table had separated her desk from Diamond Tiara's. She had put Apple Bloom's desk in between Diamond Tiara's Silverspoon when the two wouldn't stop talking to each other during class. But it was looking like that wouldn't be enough. Apple Bloom had dropped a note, as he was stirring as Shirley left her desk and walked over to the following piece of paper. "What could be so important that it could wait until after class?" she asked, turning the paper over with one hoof, revealing, "It's blank," she asked, not seeing the Apple Bloom, who was shrugging helplessly. Shirley sighed, shaking her head as she picked up the crumpled paper and tossed it into the wastebasket. 2 points! Before turning back around, heading back for her desk. She was about to ask Apple Bloom not to pass notes, and that no, it didn't matter that she hadn't been the one to write, nor was it blank. In class, when she heard muffled laughter, no, not laughter, snickering. "Remind you of any pony?" Diamond Tiara asked, her voice obviously supposed to be heard by her classmates, especially Silverspoon, who also tittered. She probably had thought that Shirley would overhear. She had been mistaken. "As a matter of fact, it does, Diamond Tiara," Shirley said, turning around. She noticed Apple Bloom's dejected look. She was one of the ponies in class who had yet to earn her cutie mark. It shot the red-maned filly a conciliatory smile. How many of you remember our geography lesson for 2 weeks ago? Does any pony remember who Miyamori Cadenza is? All hopes of the class remained on the floor, the lesson only being dimly remembered, except by one, Alula, who was a yellow-coated, purple-maned Pegasus filly who possessed both Pegasus wings and a unicorn hoof, race one hoof. The Princess of Kavala? She asked timidly, aware that a lot of pony eyes were now on her. Alula was embarrassed about having both wings and a horn, as she wasn't really extraordinary, not beyond the normal limits of a unicorn or Pegasus in any event. She was no alicorn like Luna or Cadenza. A lot of ponies expected amazing things from her. A lot of the other foals that thought she might be an alicorn in disguise, in fact. But Charlie knew her to be just like any other filly her age. Charlie nodded. That's right, she said. She's the immortal alicorn princess of Kavala and has been alive for 1,000 years. And she did not earn her cutie mark until she was nearly 30 years old. Yet, despite that, she was the crowned princess of Kavala before earning it, and is among the closest friends and confidants of Princess Luna herself. Or, she continued, turning back to her presentation, if you like a more recent example, there's me. I was older than any other pony here before I earned my cutie mark. In fact, I was the last pony I knew to earn one. But I never let that get me down. You see, class, Shirley continued, not specifically addressing Diamond Tiara, but the Earth Pony filly certainly knew that she was the target of Terry's lecture. As important as cutie marks are to pony, just as important is the journey of self-discovery involved in finding your special talent. Before earning his or her cutie mark, no pony knows his or her special talent, which is just another way of saying that his or her special talent could be anything, and that the pony still gets to experience the joy of finding out of what it's going to be. So, it's better to be a blank Frank? Diggy Doo exclaimed from her desk. Charlie reacted before the folds of class like cutie marks could feel insulted. Not exactly, she explained. Remember that a pony without a cutie mark hasn't yet realized what makes him or her truly happy after all. I say that at the end of the day, it's simply most important to be yourself. Every pony earns their cutie marks eventually, when their time is right. It might make some ponies longer than others, but it always happens, and until then, you should just enjoy yourselves and be happy. Apple Bloom and the other pre-cutie mark ponies in the classroom looked audibly astonished, while Diamond Tiara and the other ones who had already earned their cutie marks also looked satisfied with Charlie's explanation. The teacher didn't delude herself into thinking that she had already fully stopped the eternal conflict between cutie mark and blank foals, but she had at least foresaw this particular battle, and maybe imparted a little wisdom along the last. All right then, class, Charlie said, as he turned to her presentation. As he did, she caught a glance out the window, and saw that the rain had started falling, harder as he expected it to. Now, who here could tell me what is believed to create cutie marks? By the time the school day ended, a steady downpour had begun in earnest, turning the dark roads comprised most of Ponyville into inch-deep mud punctuated by wide puddles and flowing rivulets. Most of the foals' parents had been seen in the rain coming, and had come to pick up their foals, bringing their waterproof raincoats from home, usually while pausing to complain to Charlie or each other about the unscheduled weather change. Unfortunately, not all the foals' family could make it, due to their being too busy at their places of work. Ponyville was a safe enough town that foals could normally walk home from school by themselves. But today, with this unexpected storm, Charlie didn't feel confident of allowing them to do so. Thus, it was that Charlie found herself walking Dinky Doo, Silver Spoon, and Apple Bloom home through the rain, wearing the spare raincoats that the school had stored away, which looked and smelled like they hadn't been used for a very long time, if ever. Silver Spoon had complained quite a bit about the cloaks. The rain, the mud, the company, the fact that she still had to do her homework even though it was raining and she had to walk home. Nobody else was understanding how one could stay connected to the other, and just about everything else that she could think of, despite Charlie's frequent admonishments. Fortunately, hers was the first home that the four of them had reached. Almost in spite of herself, she did thank Charlie for their escort. Despite Silver Spoon's home being their first stop, however, Charlie found herself thoroughly soaked by the rain. The cloak she was wearing was not as waterproof as the other three she had managed to scrounge up for the foals. She tried not to let it get to her. Dinky Doo's home was next. It was also, thankfully, only a few streets away from Silver Spoon's. Unlike Silver Spoon, Dinky had largely behaved herself, and actually determinedly avoided mud puddles or splashing around in the rain. Not that she minded it. But she informed Charlie her mother was covering a shift at the post office today, which means he was going to come home tired, and the last thing he needed to do was to clean up any mess that Dinky had tracked over all the apartment. Despite the short distance between Silver Spoon's rather opulent home and Dinky's locked apartment above the post office, Cheerilee found herself having paths-soaked and ventured into the nearly waterlogged territory due to the trip. And the longest leg was still left. Sweet Apple Acres, clear outside of town, with the usually well-behaved, but certainly easy to excite Apple Bloom. Apple Bloom, unlike Silver Spoon or Dinky, was thoroughly enjoying splashing around in the rain and muck. "I'm going to buy a thing anyway," Singapore Cheerilee, matter-of-factly, after jumping and nearly bottle-flopping into a particularly large puddle. "Might as well make it worth the effort, right?" "Yes, but what about your school books?" Cheerilee asked the filly. She'd, so far, managed to avoid being splashed by Apple Bloom, and by this point, Apple Bloom's house was in sight. "My school bag is waterproof," Apple Bloom proclaimed happily. "Miles actually made sure to get me all the way over school bag just in case I ever got caught outside in the rain. You can practically go swimming with it." She paused, then smiled brightly when she spotted the deep pond that was on Apple Family Lane. "What? Whoa, Nelly!" A voice matching the country drawl to Apple Bloom's own called as the filly decided to drive off. But just as Cheerilee was about to stop her, coming out from one of the fields onto the muddy road was an orange-coated mare with a blonde mane and tail, wearing only a sturdy Stetson, seeming to be unconcerned about the rain. Applejack was pulling a small car of apples behind her. "Now you know you weren't just about to go for a swim in this weather, Apple Bloom." "Ow!" Apple Bloom moaned at her sister's admonishment. "But I'm wet anyway." "You ain't about getting wet, Sugar Cube. You'll know that the stream swells when the rain floods the pond. Water ain't so flood fast enough to sweep away." "But I'm a good swimmer." "Not good enough to put my mind at ease. You can go for a swim when the pond level drops, but not before, you hear?" Apple Bloom didn't seem too happy with that, but didn't charge the pond, at least. Instead of letting outside, thanking Cheerilee for seeing her home as good manners demanded, trudging towards the house. Cheerilee and Applejack both laughed slightly at the sight of the disappointing filly once he was out of earshot. "Yeah, I'll remember when I didn't think anything could hurt me neither," the farmer remarked. "Of course, even I wasn't dumb enough to try to jump into a flooding pond." Cheerilee paused at that, tapping one waterlogged hoof to her mouth. I did this about an hour ago, so you might not want to sit out in the rain talking. But, as it stood, she was wet enough anyway to not feel a pain in mind. "I seem to recall something about a treehouse, a tornado from the Everfree, and wanted to make sure it was all right." Applejack looked embarrassed for a moment before laughing. "Shucks," she admitted. "Guess that was pretty dumb. Thank you, by the way, for bringing Apple Bloom home. I ain't worried none about a little rain, but I could certainly appreciate the concern." "Speaking of," Cheerilee noted, looking at Applejack's moss-covered fruit, "is this really apple-bucking weather?" The farmer shook her head. "It ain't. But the water and wind makes a few apples drop away early, and I ain't in the business of letting them go to waste. They make good cider. Not our cider says the quality of cider mound, but still good cider." "I'll keep an eye for it in the market," Cheerilee promised. "Anyway, better get going. See you later, Applejack."
"Later, Cheerilee,"
Applejack returned. Cheerilee did not for a moment regret seeing Silver Spoon, Dinky Doo, or Apple Bloom home. Especially the last, as he honestly felt that going for a swim in this weather was a good idea. Though, without Cheerilee around to show her off her school bag to, she probably wouldn't have considered it. She did, however, regret how soaked though she now was. She more closely resembled a magenta sponge than a pony at this point. The raincoat had completely failed her by this time, as he was back in town in Sweet Apple Acres, and she now wore more of a lack of anywhere to throw it out than due to rain remaining need for its protection. Her mane, only recently recovered from a somewhat eventful day last month, was hanging around her like a waterlogged mump. In sum, she was wet. Cheerilee sighed as she trudged through town. Earth ponies were naturally resilient and starry, but she knew that even considering that, there was a fairly good chance she was going to end up with a cold as a result of this little adventure. Still, the trade-off was peace of mind, which made the whole ordeal worthwhile. Cheerilee heard the simmering sound of unicorn telekinesis over her head, and looked up just in time to see a bucket full of wire, wrapped around a golden aurora, overturned slightly onto her face. She let out a gasp as the sun followed the wire, sputtering. Over the rain, and in spite of her water-filled ears, she heard laughter. As she turned left, she saw Bonbon's confectionarium, and standing just inside the door, a pair of grinning ponies. One, a cream-colored earth pony, one, a seafoam green unicorn, and both appearing to have something of a death wish and utter confidence that was about to be granted. "Hi, Cheerilee," Lara called over her second oldest friend. Shirley had known Lyra since the two were in diapers, and Bonbon does as long. It was Bonbon's idea. Shirley closed her eyes, counting to 10. When she opened them, she was looking at Bonbon, smiling wildly. It just gave me a fantastic idea of my own, she said. Bonbon stared uncomprehendingly for a moment, then let out a slight shriek as Shirley charged forward. She tried to turn and dash further into her store, but was too slow as Shirley leapt and landed on her. So could the earth pony instantly as Lyra laughed, while carrying backwards and well clear into the placenta sponge of her victim. Ark! Bonbon cried, struggling as Shirley stood and shook herself off, with Bonbon right beneath her, soaking her even more. She wasn't worried about the candy in the store, which she knew to be safe in their containers. Help! Lyra tapped a hook to her mouth, considering. Nope, she said. Way I see it, this is fair for dumping water on poor Shirley. You dumped the water! Bonbon said along with Shirley. I was just merely more of a tool being used, Lyra pointed out. An accomplice that was coerced with threats of pain and you not making brownies tonight. Wait, Shirley, what are you? Shirley had tried away from Bonbon, back outside, retrieving the bucket, then tried back in, and calmly proceeded to the sink that was behind the confectionery's counter and began filling the bucket to the brim. Oh no, Lyra attempted, horn glowing defensively as Shirley finished filling the bucket. Oh, no. I was unwilling! Dragged! Coerced! She started galloping away, toward the door that would take up to her and Bonbon's apartment, but found it blocked off by a cream-colored earth pony who was grinning maniacally as Shirley. Treason! Lyra exclaimed, just as Shirley came up behind her and overturned the bucket on the unicorn's head, then threw her sopping wet raincoat over her, and lastly poured onto her for good measure. Bonbon joined in, and within moments, all three were equally soaked, although this resulted in a net positive for Shirley, since she mostly just ended up transferring water from her own coat to the other two. After several long minutes of flailing limbs and crimes of bow, the three mares managed to disentangle themselves, panting, but laughing despite themselves. This'll be fun to clean up, Shirley remarked, looking around the store. Maybe we went a little overboard. Nah, it gives me something to do, she said with a sigh. No pony is going to head out here in the rain for candy. Plus, me and Lyra had a picnic planned, but that's not happening either. Yeah, not sure what the weather patrol is thinking, she said as she telekinetically grabbed a pair of mops, one for her and one for Bonbon. At a motion for Shirley, she passed the squeegee onto the magenta pony. I mean, I always knew that Rainbowdash was lazy, but we used to be able to at least count on every pony else. There's probably a good reason for it, Shirley said. Lyra and Bonbon were mopping, but while she followed with squeegee, pushing the water from the wooden floor outside. Didn't Caritas say something about organizing a storm for the Farmers' Union? I thought that was last week, Bonbon ventured. Working together, the three of them had quickly overturned their impromptu firefight into the sparkling floors, and all were now standing by the door. Shirley had taken the opportunity to throw out the useless raincoat in the bin near the rain door. Shirley shrugged. I thought so too. Maybe they saw that the storm over Everthree and decided to just go with the... There was a splash outside, something like a pony shape hitting the ground. The three looked and saw that raindrops had landed in a large puddle in the mud by the road. Rain helps me entangle all the things that... she sang as she splashed around, oblivious to the rest of the world, before taking off again to the sky and passing beyond the trio's range of hearing. Then landing once more, took off, and then landed. Hey, she can sing, Lyra noted. Pretty good, too. What has her in a good mood? Shirley wondered out loud. Well, let's think, Bonbon said. Her name is Raindrops. Her cutie mark is rain, and it's raining. So clearly it's because Trixie has finally learned about the birds and the bees. Bonbon, Lyra warned softly. Bonbon put a hook to her mouth in embarrassment. Shirley was about to respond to Bonbon's snark, with a bit of snark of her own. The three had known each other for far too long for incongruous sarcasm to set them off, but stopped to look at the look on Lyra's and Bonbon's face. She thought it was just a random comment from Bonbon, but the two mares' expressions told her otherwise. Huh? Bonbon opened her mouth, but Lyra showed her hooves. Nothing! It's coming up to that time of the year for Bonbon, so she just has... stuff on her mind. You know how it is. Bonbon insisted, taking Lyra's hooves from her mouth. Yes, please, go and advertise the fact around town, Lyra. Okay, Shirley intoned. But why did you bring up Trixie? Bonbon sighed. Well, okay. Short, explicit version is that since my heat is coming up, I've been getting ideas. And I've been thinking back to that little adventure that me and Lyra and Tracy had a few months back. You remember how we told you, and how it might be interesting if Lyra had fingers again. But for that, we need Trixie's help, and since she's not exactly experienced, and it tends to get all panicked whenever the subject comes up, I'm not so sure how to approach her. I also object to me transforming again, Lyra provided. It was just an idea, Bonbon said with a sigh. Cheryl's mind whirled. She could almost feel the gears shifting in her head, putting together what Bonbon was saying. Oh! She said, her snout scratching up a little and thought, oh my, that's a good point. She is uncomfortable with sexual subjects. Like, she doesn't know what's going on and resents it. Yeah, Lyra said, sitting in place. Yeah, me and Bonbon figured out her problem. But it's her to deal with, right? Cheerily looked at Lyra like she was insane, but instantaneously knew what the unicorn meant. If Lyra thought that not informing Tracy about the facts of life was something that would help protect her fellow unicorn, then she simply wouldn't. She'd keep Trixie's little secret so that way Tracy wouldn't have to be embarrassed by it in front of others. But Cheerily was a teacher, and she was a friend. She couldn't let something like that simply slide, but if she told Lyra about her intentions to elucidate and educate, then she would almost certainly try to stop her. Okay, Cheerily said. Well, I better get going. I don't think this rain's going to stop, and I've got to get home. Sure, Lyra said, oblivious to her attention. Sorry about the whole bucket of water thing. Yeah, sorry, Bonbon sighed. I was just bored. It's all right. I got my revenge, Cheerily said with a smile. See you later. Cheerily took off, heels of the rain now that she had a mission. Checking over her shoulder to make sure that neither Lyra or Bonbon noticed she was heading the wrong way to her house. She set out for a gallop for the residency of the representative of the Night Court of Luna. Trixie cannot go through life not knowing about sex, she thought to herself. It's her choice what to do with the knowledge, but she needs it! Some point you want to take advantage of her! She reached the residency in just a few minutes. The two-story house was surrounded by a short iron fence and reached the town hall. She was dominated the center of Ponyville and was surrounded by a broad cobblestone plaza. Steeling herself against the task she now had to undertake, she passed through the gate of the residency, walked up to the front door, and opened it. That's because you interrupted before we could reach the good part! Trixie Cheerily heard. Trixie's office was located to the left of her front door, and glancing in, Cheerily saw a rain and mud-soaked raindrops and a panic-looking Trixie, each looking at a book. There was probably writing on the book's pages, but that was not Cheerily had noted. What Cheerily had noted that was that the two-page spread picture of two unicorns making out. What are you doing? Raindrops left in fright. Trying to take flight as her Pegasus instincts, Trixie took a defensive stance with her horn glowing, standing stock still as per her unicorn instincts. The result was Raindrops colliding with Trixie, both tumbling to the floor in a tangle of legs and wings. The two looked like a pair of fillies caught with their hooves in a cookie jar. Or else... Raindrops. Trixie, for some odd reason, was wearing a pure virgin white cape, as the Raindrops, who wore a leather jacket and sunglasses. I was at the general store, and I was looking at the magazines, and I found this. Why are these ponies fighting? They're not fun, Raindrop said with a raised eyebrow. You don't know what's happening? It makes me feel funny. Well, I'll help you with that. Tilly was grateful for her magenta coat. It meant that her blessings were usually well hidden. Neither Trixie nor Raindrops had such protection, each having turned an impressive shade of pink. All right, Tilly said. Pointing at Raindrops, I want you to go upstairs and get yourself cleaned off. Raindrops made a face. Wait, what? Go on. I'll talk with you later, but I need to speak to Trixie first. Raindrops blinked a few times before deciding that Cheerily was not one to be argued with. Okay, she said, standing up and trying out the Trixie stairs to her shower. Cheerily turned to Trixie. Now, Trixie, she said, I can only guess that you found this, she pointed to the picture, and other pictures like it, and it made you confused. Trixie blinked a few times where she stood. Why are you here? To educate and elucidate! Cheerily proclaimed happily. Now, Trixie, I want to make something clear. I don't know how you managed to make it to adulthood without learning the basic facts of life, but I would have thought that the princess, at least, would have assured that you were filled in. But I don't think any less of you for it. Cheerily passed pink, and now had a cold of mighty roughly matched Cheerily's own. What? Now sit down, Charlie said, placing her hose on Trixie's withers and pushing her to the floor. Because there's a lot to go over. Charlie, And while Bonbon shouldn't just let something like this slip away, she did. Wait, she did? Trixie? Charlie said stern enough for the unicorn to quiet down. This is going to take even longer if you keep interrupting. And while I'm certain that Raindrops wasn't trying to take advantage of you, you should at least know about sex before going in. The red drained for Trixie's features, taking her normal blue with it, leaving a stark white as she stared at Charlie in shock. Charlie nodded. You are going to have to get used to that word first of all, Charlie said with a sigh. Sex, that is. Trixie stared. Charlie sighed again, sitting in front of Trixie. Now, she said, we'll start with the basics. I'm sure that you noticed that a stallion has a different set of organs between his hind legs and a mare. That's his... This goes on for a few minutes. Well, if you got a good stallion working you, it could usually go on for much longer. But on the other hand, some stallions can't even really get started. But that's okay. There are other techniques. Now, of course, that usually only covers stallions. Mares can have sex too. Usually this really basically does involve the two masturbating each other. Oh, wait. I think I forgot to go over what that is. Alright, sorry. Masturbation is... Horns are very sensitive that way, despite its common myth. It's mostly just solid bone covered by a thin layer of skin with no nerve endings and fuzz. Any excitement that unicorns feel is almost entirely psychological. However, there is a mass of extremely sensitive nerves right at the base of the horn, sort of similar to the nerve clusters in the aluli of Pegasi. From personal experience, I can tell that getting a threesome right can be difficult, since there has to be a degree of trust between all ponies involved. But if two ponies are in a committed relationship already, you need to make sure not to elicit jealousy. Of course, when Bonbon, Lyra, and I tried it, mostly it was just awkward since I'd known them for so long, and it was more like they were my sisters than anything. We've agreed to keep me out ever since, and, you know, we're still good friends. And things get really weird when Minotaurs are involved, but the fun kind of weird that I mentioned. And I never did figure out where he got that Royal Guard uniform from, but he and I have been abandoned by Terry, and he'd hold me up to Caroline if I didn't do everything he said. That was a fun night, all right. And, well, that just about wraps everything up, Charlie said happily, smiling at Trixie, who still had not had the color return to her face. Letting out a slight sigh, she put her on Trixie's withers. I know it's a lot to take in, she said. No pun intended, but... You couldn't go through life not wallowing without sex. Trixie, you just couldn't. Whoa, wait, what? Trixie interrupted. Charlie looked behind her and saw Raindrops, now clean and mostly dry, staring at Charlie and Trixie with wide eyes. What did I miss? Raindrops, Charlie said, standing. I'm giving you the benefit of the doubt, and I'm certain that you didn't mean to take advantage of Trixie. She kissed me! Raindrops exclaimed, throwing her front hose in the air. It was a memory spell! Charlie blinked. A what now? Memory. Spell. Trixie said absentmindedly from the floor. She was thinking back and forth a little. Takes my... Transfers it to... Conduit. Through the... Mouth. Charlie stared at Trixie with one eyebrow raised. She noticed the book with the picture of two ponies making out and it's still lying on the floor where it had been left, and closed it over, finding that the title was Dormore's Heart Diatribe on Divinations. A spell book. Not... some other kind of book. Charlie looked at Trixie. You knew about sex? Of course I did! Standing with her horn glowing a bright blue. I grew up in New Orleans. I have 7 cousins. My house was smaller than this one. I can't recall a time I didn't know about sex. My aunt and uncle always answered any questions I had, and even when they didn't, I had my older cousins, and then there were my friends, and the red light district was right next to the market district, not to mention the kind of stuff that goes on during the sun celebration. I mean, yeah, I was too young to do anything when I lived there, but all you have to do is look out a window around noon during the sun celebration, and you pick stuff up, and it is gross! Charlie's eyebrow arched further. Gross? She asked. Yes! Gross! The way that stallions are being expected to are telling in the same place that Trixie shivered, glaring Charlie. I don't even want to think about it ever! What did Bonbon say that made you think I didn't know? Charlie opened her mouth to explain before thinking it over. very carefully, exactly what Bonbon had said when she explained her snarky comment. Um, uh, she, she said, I might have misinterpreted what she... The door to Residency opened, and Lyra, wearing a raincoat considerably better quality than the one Tyrrell had been wearing, wandered in. She glanced at Tyrrell, Trixie, and Raindrops, and blinking a few times, she saw the expression on the three mares, a look of sheepishly on her face. Slung across her back, under her raincoat, were saddlebags that looked like they were laden with candy. So, I'm guessing I'm too late to stop Tyrrell then, she ventured. Well, I think maybe I should have thought things a little more before heading out to elucidate and educate. This is still the only second most embarrassed I've ever been, though. So, there's that.